Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Troy, your host. We are live and recording.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is almost 5 till 3. We're running a little bit behind today, but thank you for your patience with us. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Land Use Meeting and Public Hearing for Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order. If you'll all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Attorney Garcia, do we have certification of the agenda today?
You do. The County Attorney's Office has reviewed all items on the agenda. Proper notice has been provided. You have proper jurisdiction. And on the one item that was continued, that was done appropriately as well.
Thank you. And do any commissioners have disclosures for items on this agenda?
I have none, thank you.
And I have none either. With that, we'll move to item 2, which is our land use meeting agenda items. Item 2A is Highlands Ranch filing number 112A, Third Amendment, project file SB 2023-030. Brett Thomas presenting for staff. Hi, Brett.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas representing Planning Services. Project before you is Highlands Ranch filing 112A, Third Amendment, project file number SB 2023-030. Ryan Kasarik with Norris Design is the project representative. Douglas County School District is the owner and is represented today by Rich Cosgrove. The request is for approval of a final plat consisting of 48 single-family residential lots, 1 tract, and associated public roads on 10.84 acres within the Highlands Ranch PD. The intent of the final plat process is to provide for the review of the final engineering plans, the subdivision improvement agreement, public dedications, and other legal agreements. The final plat process begins with submittal of an application, following a review period by referral agencies and the public, and acceptance of engineered plans. The request is considered by the board at a public meeting. Correspondence was received from one abutting landowner who requested the proposed cul-de-sac be a through street. Public correspondence and referral comments received are attached to the staff report. Referral comments were standard in nature and have been addressed by the applicant. The site is located in the northern portion of Douglas County on the west side of Highlands Ranch. The site is generally located south of Town Center Drive, approximately 1/2 mile west of its intersection with Lucent Boulevard. As seen on the aerial, Tract A is bound by Bitterroot Place on the north, Ironwood Street on the east, and single-family residential along Cactus Bluff Place on the south and west. This slide provides background on the site's various land use approvals. In 1994, the site was first platted for 48 residential lots as part of the Highlands Ranch filing 112A. In 1998, the board approved a replat, Highlands Ranch filing 112A Second Amendment, which vacated the 48 single-family residential lots and internal roads to create Tract A for a school site. In 2021, the school district requested ownership of Tract A be transferred from the county to the school district so that could be declared surplus property, no longer necessary for a school facility. In November of 2022, the 77th Amendment to the Highlands Ranch PD was approved by the board to amend the boundary of Planning Area 43, increase the gross residential acreage, reduce the acreage of non-urban area, and increase the total dwelling units allowed within Planning Area 43 by 48 units. This final plat layout substantially conforms to the preliminary plan approved by the board in September of 2023. The applicant proposes 48 single-family residential lots on approximately 9 acres of the 10.84 acre site. Gross density of the proposed subdivision is 4.3 dwelling units per acre. The applicant proposes a design which includes a small drainage and utility tract, as well as public roads. Local road access, Gold Lace Place, will extend off of Ironwood Street. The application includes a request to vacate 4 feet of existing public right-of-way along Bitterroot Place and Ironwood Street and incorporate that acreage into the adjacent proposed residential lots. The right-of-way that is being vacated was dedicated when the property was replatted as a school site. However, the streets were never widened to accommodate a school. Here is a view looking west into the site near the intersection of Bitterroot Place and Ironwood Street. Here's a view looking east into the site near the intersection of Cactus Bluff Avenue and Bitterroot Place. And here's a view looking northwest into the site near the intersection of Cactus Bluff Avenue and Ironwood Street. These are the approval standards applicable to a final plat. Detailed assessment of the project's compliance with all standards is included in the staff report. All engineered plans, studies, and reports have been reviewed and approved by engineering. The subdivision improvements agreement has also been approved. Staff has evaluated the final plat request in accordance with Article 5 of the subdivision resolution. Condition number 1, prior to recordation of the final plat, technical corrections to the final plat exhibit shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. Condition number 2, a burrowing owl survey shall be performed if any earth moving will begin between March 15th and August 31st. Condition number 3, during construction activity within the development, the applicant, its successors, and assigns shall take all reasonable care to watch for historic resources, paleontological resources, and other cultural history resources, and shall immediately notify Douglas County and complete appropriate Colorado Office of Archaeology and Historic Preservation data management forms in the event of such discovery. And condition number 4, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public meeting and or agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Section 504.06 of the subdivision resolution sets forth the parameters for the board's determination on final plat requests, as noted on this slide. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions at this time. In addition, Jacob Gable, Al Peterson, and Chris Martin from Public Works Engineering are present to answer any questions. The applicant representative, Ryan Kasirik with Norris Design, is otherwise prepared to make a presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brett, for that. We appreciate it. Any questions for staff?
Brett, I do have one question. There was an email in the packet that talks about, it says, again, the main issue all of us neighbors have is the street that needs to continue through the field. It needs to connect all the way through. To have a cul-de-sac in the middle will bring way more traffic up and down Ironwood Street, which right now is really the only way out of all of Westridge Glen. So is that a question that you can answer, or should the applicant answer that?
I assume the applicant has that in their presentation. If you have any follow-up questions, those staff can provide answers.
Okay, great. Then I will ask that of the applicant when they are done. Thank you.
Additional questions of staff?
I'd like to hear from the applicant first, and then I may return for staff questions.
And I would as well. If we can have the applicant approach.
Good afternoon, Chair Layden, Commissioner Teal, Commissioner Thomas. My name is Ryan Kasirik, 1101 Bannock Street, Denver, Colorado, 80204. I'm with Norris Design, and I am here presenting on behalf of the applicant, Miller United, for the Westridge final plat application. This project is involved through the course of its entitlement process a number of key stakeholders, including Douglas County School District, Douglas County Planning Commission, this board, the Board of County Commissioners, the Centennial Water and Sanitation District, South Metro Fire, Highlands Ranch Community Association, and the neighborhood immediately surrounding our site, the Westridge community. Along with those key stakeholders, we have a project team that's here with us today. Rich Cosgrove is here with us from the Douglas County School District. Miller United Real Estate, the applicant, is here with us as well, Scott Goldhammer and Scott Schoflick. My name is Ryan Kasirik, a planner with Norris Design. We're doing the entitlements with this. My colleague, Daniel Jennings, has been helping with this as well. He's presented to you the past couple times. Him and his wife actually just had their first child 2 days ago, so I'm here in his place. And then HKS Engineering, our civil engineer, Ben Satterwhite is here with us, and then our traffic engineer, Brett Zimkowski, is here with us as well from HKS, and then finally our legal counsel, Eric Carlson with Foster Graham Milstein, and Kelshire is here. So a little bit about Miller United. Miller United Real Estate's long and successful history doing infill projects within Douglas County, projects similar to this. You can see with the applicant team that is here today, they work with top industry professionals to ensure that these projects are successful and done in a positive way. They have a number of examples of projects that they've done in Douglas County. We'll go through these fairly quickly. 186 single-family home project in Parker, Overlook Ranch, Cherry Creek. Crystal Valley West, another 104 units in Castle Rock. Canyon Village, this is in Highlands Ranch like ours is as well, 54 single-family homes. 56 single-family homes at Cityscape at Highline in Highlands Ranch, and Village at Castle Pines, another 43 single-family homes here in Castle Pines Village, all infill developments similar to the one in front of you today. Along with that successful work, Miller United is completed here in Douglas County. They've also partnered with the Family Center of Douglas County, and a portion of the proceeds from this project will go to the Family Center of Douglas County. So, diving into our final plat application, this is our site as Brett laid out before. We're south of Town Center Drive, to the east of Redstone Park, west of the shops at Town Center. And this is a final plat for 48 lots consistent with the Highlands Ranch PD. This is a project that the Douglas County School District and Douglas County Board of County Commissioners selected this site for development. It works as a logical infill site with the surrounding neighborhood with existing infrastructure there, and it features lots and homes consistent with that surrounding neighborhood. Brief project history. This site, as was mentioned before, was platted for 48 residential homes by Mission Viejo in 1994. In 1998 and into 1999, the plans were amended, removing the 48 lots and setting the site aside dedicated to Douglas County School District for a school. Fast forward to 2021, and at the request of Douglas County School District, the BOCC, the Board of County Commissioners, conveyed this property to Douglas County School District to be sold for development. In 2022, we were with you all for a PD amendment, which rezoned the site from a school site to medium residential. And then this past September 2023, we were here for the preliminary plan, which laid out the site consistent with those documents and the 48 lots there. So here's the original plat, just blown up here and provided for context. And then this is our proposed final plat. This is an illustrative of it here with those 48 lots located there. And so we'll go to the next slide here. So we follow the intent of the 1994 plat to the best extent that we can. We have 48 lots proposed. We have lots proposed that are consistent with, they're on average maybe 10% larger than those lots that are immediately surrounding here. And proposing home size and quality that's very similar to the surrounding neighborhood. I think to get to your question, Commissioner Thomas, we can probably point at it here now. So Gold Lace Place is our road that runs through the center of the site. When we went through the preliminary plan process, that's when you get into the detailed civil engineering with these projects. And at the time, we learned that there was an alignment issue with existing lot at the intersection to the west, to the left side of our screen here, that didn't allow for the road to run through it. After working with Douglas County Engineering, determining what road alignment could suffice, we ultimately ended up with the road alignment that we have here. There was no changes to the traffic study that was done in terms of the impact on the capacity of the roads surrounding the site between if it went through or not. And so we proceeded forward with this preliminary plan that was approved by the BOCC, and the final plat that matches that as well. This is a logical infill development site, so there's some real net positives to this. There's existing infrastructure already in place. There's roads, there's sewer, there's water there that can be connected into it. We're in compliance with Centennial Water and Sanitation District. We have a little note up here about the goals that Centennial Water has to do Coloradoscape, which is their term for xeriscape, and that's really looking at using low water plant material that blends well with native landscaping to reduce water use in the site. We also have service letters from all those different providers with will-serve letters, including will-serve letters from Centennial Water and Sanitation District, Lytle Water Solutions, from South Metro Fire, Douglas County School District, from Highlands Ranch Community Association, and from the Highlands Ranch Master Developer, Shea Homes. And with all that, we were able to collect that, create our final plat document. And so The final plat process is really a submittal of documents that include your traffic study, your drainage report, biological and cultural resource studies, and the final plat document, along with engineering documents such as construction documents and drainage plans that are reviewed by county engineering. There's 3 rounds of review from planning and engineering, 1 round of referral agency review, and we did have a neighborhood outreach event as well. Kind of following the overall timeline of this development process, in 2022, November 2022, we had the PD amendment approved by the Board of County Commissioners. We then went and worked on that engineering. I talked about the preliminary plan, which was approved in September 2023 by the Board of County Commissioners, and we're here today for the final plat, sort of the final entitlement process for this project. There's 9 final plat approval standards. This project meets and exceeds all 9 of those standards. We have them listed here, and we can go into those in more detail if we'd like, but for the sake of this presentation, we'll keep on trucking here. So we've also worked with the community really throughout this process before we came in front of the board, starting way back in March 30th, 2022, all the way through to our 11th public meeting, which was in November 13th, 2023. Those meetings some were held virtually, some were held on site, some were held in local rec centers, all done to work with the neighbors. And we heard a few things from them and have worked to address some of those concerns. So a concern that we heard from the beginning from neighbors was just on lot sizes and whether they would be similar in size, similar in nature to those surrounding. As we show here, we're roughly 10% larger than surrounding sites. That's largely just kind of how the lot lays out in general, but we're very consistent with what is surrounding our neighborhood. We had questions about neighborhood character. The homes that we're proposing are similar in quality and in design to those that are surrounding us. So images on the top of the screen, those are photos from the existing neighborhood, those surrounding homes. The photos on the bottom are renderings that we've provided for what potential homes on the site could look like and will look like. And I think only thing I want to point out here, in addition to just sort of the relative similarity between the two, is that our homes shown on the bottom in rendering are all 3-stall garages. Each of the product is, and the intent is to build that on site. So we also heard concerns from neighbors about what traffic would look like. So our traffic study examined the capacity of the surrounding roads, the capacity of West Bitterroot Place, South Ironwood Street, and Cactus Bluff Place. So looked at the existing road capacity and what the addition of 48 lots would do, and found that the capacity, this is the capacity that would be in place after the 48 lots are built. All 3 roads are well within the capacity of our site, and the surrounding roads are able to handle the 48 lots as well. We also heard concerns with drainage. This photo is taken from the southwest intersection, so Cactus Bluff Place, Cactus Bluff Avenue, Bitterroot, where they all connect in down at the southwest. This photo was taken during a heavy rainfall event 3 or 4 years ago. And the existing drainage out there right now looks pretty similar to what we have here in this drawing. So the red arrows show how water flows south on South Ironwood Street, east on Cactus Bluff Place to 2 existing inlets on Cactus Bluff Avenue. As we saw at that photo, sometimes those existing inlets can get overburdened by flow from those 2 streets. This project actually provides a pretty good health, life safety solution here to the drainage going on at this intersection. So if we look at this drawing in blue, on the left of the center line of those roads on Cactus Bluff Place and the left of the center line of South Ironwood Street, that flow now goes into our site and into two new existing inlet structures. That will reduce the demand that comes in on those existing ones on Cactus Bluff Avenue and provide a pretty good solution to some drainage concerns here. We also heard from neighbors questions about fencing. Miller United is working with the neighbors to replace 1,300 linear feet of fence between the southern property boundary of our site and those existing homes directly to the south of us. That's being done at cost to Miller United, so not at cost to those existing residents, but to the developer. This plan to handle the 1,300 linear feet replacement was brought in front of the HRCA Architectural Review Committee, and they approved of it. So, in conclusion, we ask that you approve this final plat for 48 residential lots Based on the reasonings that we have here, the plan is consistent with the land use and standards of the Highlands Ranch PD. This is a logical infill development site compatible with surrounding neighborhood and existing infrastructure. The proposed lots are compatible and complementary with those that are already there. This has been identified by Douglas County School District as a top priority site, with these proceeds going directly to Douglas County School District. And we've completed extensive and ongoing neighborhood outreach with the surrounding community and homeowners, and listened to their feedback and concerns, and accommodated a number of those concerns. I'm also going to have Rich Cosgrove come up here and speak just a little bit for Douglas County School District as well.
Great, thanks so much. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you very much for your consideration. I simply want to reiterate that the Douglas County School District Board of Education supports this project. The board declared this site as surplus. It is not needed for future school use. However, we always have and will defer to the local land use authority, Douglas County, for all approvals. And we do have significant capital needs. The latest master capital plan approved by our Board of Education included $900 million to $1 billion in capital needs for 7 million square feet, 90 existing schools, in addition to the future growth. The 2023 bond 5B that failed had $126 million in urgent capital needs, just to put it in perspective. So the sale price of this property would greatly benefit the school district in the most urgent capital needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions for staff, the applicant, or Board of Education?
I have just two questions. So I had asked the question earlier about this email we had gotten about the road. So it looked like in your picture, I can see where the road goes up to a cul-de-sac. And what you said is that it could not go straight through because of an alignment with another property, so it would not be safe. Is that the answer?
Yes, it wouldn't be able to be designed to county engineering standards because it's offset, so the intersection would not be safe and would not be able to function properly.
Thank you for that. And I would just like to comment, Rich, Mr. Cosgrove, thank you for being here. I understand that these lots were set aside over 20 years ago to benefit the education of students. Is that correct? Why don't you come up here, Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you for the question. So in the past, it was dedicated for a school site based on the, at that time, the student generation and the forecast of enrollment. However, with the aging of Douglas County, and I can say that because I live in Highlands Ranch myself, those projections have changed, and we do not need this site for school capacity in Highlands Ranch.
Thank you. And just to verify these numbers, I checked with Dan Avery today in regards to Sweetwater and Tepfer Park. When those lots were sold, I think one you received maybe $600,000 and another one $500,000 from the sale of those that were turned into parks. Is that correct?
That is the order of magnitude. I don't recall the exact amount, but that was based on the appraisal for the highest and best use as a park. Yes.
Whereas this will be sold and turned into 48 homes, which gives more people the ability to buy a brand new home in Highlands Ranch, but more, I suppose you are going to sell this to a developer for more than $500,000.
Yes, the contract is based on the district's appraised value for highest and best use, but on market conditions based on residential use development.
And so I think that's important for people to understand that this parcel was supposed to be homes. In fact, when I read the packet, it even talks about light industrial for some of this ground. And so when it was set aside for the school, it was changed, but now going back to homes, it's what it was planned for originally, and it benefits the school district. So I appreciate you being here to make it clear to residents why you are selling these, because you do have these significant capital needs.
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Teal?
The applicant actually addressed two of my questions, and then Mr. Cosgrove, in his statements, addressed my third question. So I really don't have any other questions at this time.
Thank you so much for that. And again, thank you to Mr. Cosgrove for being here. I do have a couple of questions. I mean, without a doubt, we recognize that one of our approval criteria is not ensuring that the Board of Education and the school board is able to have additional resources, but we know that's an important consideration for us, and we've been partners in the past, and I think we're looking forward to doing that in the future. I know Sweetwater and Tepfer were wonderful examples where, it was appraised for the appropriate use that was available. It was not, there's no capability for it to really be a commercially developable site. So I appreciate that commentary. I know that George and others have shared some thoughts and comments with our Parks and Open Space and Historic Resources groups around the future of parks in our community. And no doubt, Board of County Commissioners holds these pieces, parcels in trust for the Board of Education. And after 20 years, they go to the open market. I think we have a joint interest in serving the citizens, and particularly students in our community. And I think ongoing partnerships through that funding mechanism that we had with 1A to be able to partner with the Board of Education and the school district to convert some of those as appropriate might be a future discussion, but I digress. Getting back to the relevant standards for today, the thing I always am a little bit concerned about is, the same concerns that we often hear from our citizens around increase in traffic issues, congestion, levels of service, noise, light pollution, all of those things that continue to come forward. That said, it's been nice to kind of review all of the legal standards in our comprehensive master plan specifically. So again, thanks to staff too for really digging in with our CMP and the specific language. I know we've asked for that in the past, and it was very specific in this application, so I appreciate that. I think when it comes to the traffic study and what's happening in terms of congestion, can you speak a little bit more to levels of service there?
Yeah, actually, I'll have our traffic engineer that's here.
Great.
Come up and talk.
Great.
Hi, Brett Ziemanowski with HKS. Just a touch, I don't know if you have any specific questions, but the traffic study did encompass the surrounding neighborhood roads as well as the access points onto Town Center Drive. And through traffic counts taken and trips projected through how many units we're building, as we previously mentioned, the capacities of specifically those local roads are well within Douglas County standards. Those standards are 1,500 vehicles per day, and that's specifically for residential roads. That's not necessarily a standard just for a two-lane road, that's for in a residential neighborhood. So we're well under that, and that's kind of to be expected as this area was, originally platted, assuming these homes would be built.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any additional questions for the applicant, for Board of Education, school district, or staff?
I have none.
No, sir.
I have none either. With that, I'll open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment in the room or online with regard to this item?
Sir, I do have online comment if you don't have anybody in the room.
Not seeing anyone in the room, so we'll go ahead and take online comment.
Thank you, sir. First, I'm going to unmute Jan and Richard Schultz. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
We're not commenting on this issue. It's for 9511 Democrat rezone.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We'll open it up for citizen comment when we get to that item in the agenda. Any additional citizen comment on this item 2A?
I have no online comment for this, sir.
Okay, thank you, Troy. And with that, I'll close citizen comment. Bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I have a motion to approve Highlands Ranch filing number 112A, third amendment, because it does meet all of the approval criteria with 4 conditions as presented. Project file SB 2023-030.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a first and second, and let me just confirm with the applicant that you're okay with the 4 conditions as presented. Okay, thank you very much. I heard a yes for the record. So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries. Thank you very much. So with that, we'll move on to item 3, which is our public hearing agenda items. And we have item 3A, 9511 Democrat Road, a rezoning from agricultural 1 to suburban residential, project file ZR 2022-017. Carolyn Washi-Freeland, senior planner, presenting for staff. And again, this item was continued from December 5th, 2023. Carolyn?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Carolyn Washi-Freeland representing Planning Services. The request is to rezone the 9511 Democrat Road property from agricultural 1 to suburban residential. The property is owned by the Sarah Chu Revocable Trust with Manhart Consulting and North Star Properties here as the applicant's representatives. Staff from engineering is also in attendance. The applicant requests approval to rezone a 9.25 acre parcel from agricultural 1 to suburban residential. Such zoning would allow a maximum gross density of 4.36 dwelling units per acre. Actual density will be determined through a future subdivision process. The property is located within the Pinery separated urban area of the county as designated by the county's comprehensive master plan and supports suburban residential zoning and urban level development. The intent of the rezoning process, as described in the zoning resolution section 2501, is to provide a process to amend the official zone district map with regard to the area of any zoning district. The rezoning process begins with the submittal of an application following a review period by referral agencies and the public. Notice is given for public hearings before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Staff received comments from several property owners and abutting HOAs and metro districts with concerns related to drainage, traffic impacts, and the design of future development. The applicant's representatives have communicated with interested neighbors on the project and is prepared to discuss this aspect of the request within their presentation. The Planning Commission heard the rezoning request at its November 20th hearing and voted 4-1 to recommend denial to the board. The recommendation for denial was based on the maximum density of the SR zone district, the impacts on the existing ponderosa pine trees, drainage, and a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood. Planning Commissioners suggested that the applicant provide more community outreach moving forward. The site, which is outlined here in red, is located on the north side of Democrat Road near the South Pinery Parkway intersection about 3 miles east of State Highway 83. This is an aerial view of the site showing all 4 boundaries of the parcel. The site is bordered by PD-zoned single-family residential development in the Timbers neighborhood in the Pinery to the east. The High Prairie Farms Metropolitan Districts tracts B and F to the north and northwest, a Pinery Water and Wastewater District parcel to the west, single-family residential development in the Timbers to the southwest, and a large single-family residential development zoned A1 to the southeast. The site has been zoned A1 since 1955 at the inception of zoning in the county, and the primary use of the property is single-family residential. The existing home on the site was built in 1975 and has been owned by the current applicant since 1992. This slide shows the rezoning exhibit. An existing home and outbuildings are present on the site in the north central portion of the property. The site slopes to the west and northwest property lines. There are no streams or major drainage ways present, and the parcel is vegetated with rolling native grassland and large stands of ponderosa pine trees. This site view is looking north from the south property line along Democrat Road. The property slopes upward with large stands of ponderosa pine. This site view is looking south from the northern edge of the property from Majestic Oak Drive. The site rises in elevation with large groves of ponderosa. This site view is looking to the easterly direction from the interior portion of the site. 2 single-family homes from the timbers are visible from the east property line. This view is looking to the west direction from the interior drive. A small outbuilding is present on the site, as well as native grasses and other natural vegetation. This slide lists the rezoning approval standards, which are discussed in detail within the staff report. The rezoning process is described in the zoning resolution, section 2504. The board shall evaluate the rezoning request, staff report, referral agency comments, applicant responses, the planning commission recommendation, and public comment and testimony, and shall approve with conditions, continue, table for further study, remand to the planning commission, or deny the rezoning request. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available to answer questions on the staff report. Dan Madison with Manhart Consulting and John Graney with North Star Properties are here to make a brief presentation and to answer questions about the project.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any questions for staff?
I have no questions. Thank you for that presentation, Carolyn.
No questions.
I do have several questions, but I'll wait following the applicant's presentation if the applicant would like to approach.
My name's Dan Madison, M-A-D-I-S-O-N. Address is 7600 East Orchard Road. And I'm a civil engineer with Manhart Consulting and representing the applicant and developer for this great project. Thank you, commissioners, for hearing us today and considering our zoning application. And thank you to county staff for presenting our application and submittal as well. Myself and the developer would like to present some additional details regarding our zoning application. Today's board hearing is really a culmination of over a year of planning by the developer. The developer met with the neighboring community twice throughout that time, as well as once with the adjacent High Prairie Farms Metro District. From the feedback we've received at those neighborhood meetings, the applicant has reworked the application and implemented significant changes to what's being proposed at the board today. The application has gone from a 27-lot plan down to just 8 or 10 planned lots, and that's based on the community feedback we've received. In the course of the year, the developer has taken that time to explore options to allow for this lower density level to work. The developer has worked to create a partnership with an established, fully custom home builder, a builder who will build gorgeous market rate homes fitting the size and style of the adjacent surrounding residential homes. This was key for the application that we're presenting here today. As outlined in our zoning application and presented by staff, the proposed zoning does meet the criteria of the comprehensive master plan. The comprehensive master plan identifies this subject land area as under Section 2 of the CMP which is urban land use. The area is within the Pinery SUA, and that's identified as separated urban areas. And we are adhering to the 30-plus objectives and policies outlined within that. The Pinery SUA supports urban development. We are also meeting the guidelines of the SR zoning district. This is the only zoning district available that fits urban land use. That is also consistent with the surrounding residential development use. It is the only zoning district that would allow for more than 3 lots on the property. There are 193 residential lots that have been built in the last 5 to 10 years adjacent to the subject property on 217 residential acres. The county comprehensive master plan has a wildlife resource map that does not show any wildlife migration corridor crossing areas within this subject property. It has categorized the property as having low habitat value. We are meeting the Colorado revised statutes with our application. There has been a substantial change to the character of the neighborhood since this property was last zoned in 1955. That can be seen as I show some aerial exhibits later in my presentation that show the development of 193 lots adjacent to this subject property. There are adequate public facilities to serve the 9-acre development that's being proposed. Pinery Water and Wastewater District will provide water and sewer. Public roads are adjacent to the property along the frontage. Sheriff and fire have service to this area. School district has service to this area. And there is a regional park nearby. Traffic impact study shows there is adequate levels of capacity to the surrounding road network with this development considered. Will serve letters have been received from the Pinery Water Wastewater District to serve the property for water and sewer services. And the 9-acre development, as I'll show here tonight, is compatible with the surrounding use. And it is compatible with the 193 recently developed residential lots that are adjacent to it. Looking at the screen, we are looking at an exhibit here that shows the existing condition of the property. You can see on this exhibit the surveyed locations of trees that exist on the property. There are some trees on the property, and I think it's important to understand the context of the recent development in the area. Is there a way to zoom? Can you zoom one back for me? Down, please. Thank you. So this is an aerial from 2011, which is prior to the Timbers development in this area of the Pinery. The first construction of the adjacent Timbers development, construction started about 2015. And the subject property is shown in the green box there at the bottom end of the aerial. You can see that there's a high density of trees, higher density of trees than what's on our subject property to the north within the Timbers development. This is an aerial from 2023. post the majority of the adjacent timbers development construction. And I think as we can see between these two, we can see the significant impacts that occurred by the timbers development construction to the native ground, to the existing trees that were on that development. If we look at a couple areas, see if I can get back to 2011, prior to development, we can look at a few areas within the timbers development here where I'm pointing to, which is just to the northwest of our subject property. And we can see how a regional pond was constructed impacting that area of the ground. Similarly, we can look at the area which was filing 32. And filing 32 is up in this area, where there were lots of existing trees within that development. And the post-construction aerial for filing 32. This is another aerial from 2017. Again, we can see a good view of pre-developed filing 32 within the timbers development. And as I move forward to an aerial in 2018, we can see the impacts that occurred for public improvements for that approved development, including the grading for the roads, the grading for a pond, the grading for lots and public utilities. Here's an aerial in 2020, and we can see the continued build out of the timbers development and continuous grading impacts to the existing land and the existing trees within that development. This is a more recent aerial from 2022 that continues to show the build out of the homes completing or getting close to completing the adjacent development of 193 lots within the timbers residence directly adjacent to our subject property. And again, a more current aerial in 2023, continuing that development growth. This aerial here is from 2020, and I think it's a good representation of sort of that middle ground of development where you can see the grading impacts that occurred for the 193 residential lots that were recently developed. So this is from 2020, so just 3 years ago. This adjacent development, of course, is within the Pinery SUA. And our development in our subject property that's in the green box is 9 acres. And so our impact is a much smaller scale. We are at 9 acres, which is 5% of the scale of this surrounding development that has gone in just the last 5 to 10 years. We are around 5% of the lot count of the surrounding residential development that has been built in the last 5 to 10 years. Our proposed development is looking to work with the existing ground and the existing trees. We will have a tree preservation plan at time of subdivision process, and we will have a fire mitigation plan as required as part of the subdivision process. The owners of the subject property have held onto their land until they were at the right phase of their life. Now that they are there, they are excited for the same opportunities for their property to be developed as has been granted to the surrounding residential development, which they have watched be built around them over the last 5 to 10 years. Carolyn, can you help me? This exhibit on the screen is our lot layout for 10 lots. You can see the existing trees that are overlaid on the layout. This development will not be mass graded for the lots. It will only be graded for the roadway system and the utilities needed. The lots will be graded individually to reduce the impact to the native ground. The builder will look to fit the home around the existing trees and work within the lot as much as feasible. At 10 lots on this plan, we are at 1.08 lots per acre. The adjacent Timbers development of 193 lots on 217 acres is a ratio of 0.89 lots per acre. So we're very similar. The lot size for these 10 lots, each lot is a half acre in size. The adjacent Timbers development has an average lot size of 0.6 acres. So again, very similar to the surrounding density and the surrounding lot size. We are providing tracks on both the east side and the west side in this plan. Those are providing open space buffers. They will be 50 to 100 feet setback so that the proposed lots are 50 to 100 feet off of the overall development property boundary. Of the 193 adjacent lots built, only 2 existing lots are directly adjacent to the subject property, and that's along the eastern property boundary. Within that, the existing homes, as part of that development, were set back between 60 and 100 feet from the property boundary. So there is additional buffer space within that development. That will equate to 120 to 200 feet of buffer between our proposed back of lot and the existing homes that are directly adjacent to the east. We have an option for on-site detention, which has been planned, and that would occur along the west side of the property. There's also an opportunity to partner with High Prairie Farms Metro District to share in the regional detention pond. This plan allows for around 30% open space within the subject property. We also have a plan for 8-lot layout, and that's what's on the screen here. At 8 lots, we are at a density of 0.86 lots per acre. That is just below the adjacent Timbers density of 0.89, so very similar. This 8-lot layout, each lot is 0.75 acres in size. Again, the average lot in the Timbers is 0.6. So these are larger lots than the adjacent residential community. This layout provides, because of the larger lot size, provides less space for on-site detention. So we would be looking to partner with High Prairie Farms Metro District to provide that share in the regional detention facility to allow this lot layout to work. With these lot plans, these layouts, exhibits we've provided here, we're showing that the development fits the neighborhood. We're showing that we're developing in a similar manner, consistent with the surrounding recent subdivisions, but at a scale of 5%, both on number of lots and acreage of the property. The development is very open to the partnership with High Prairie Farms Metro District. We plan to meet and further the discussions with them during the subdivision process. Inclusion into the district can provide a mutual benefit with funding as well as shared facilities that would help minimize some of the impacts to our land and potential impacts downstream. The development can also be self-sufficient if needed. It can provide its own detention on-site and provide an HOA to manage the open space. I'd like to introduce the developer who can speak more about the home builder that they've partnered with and talk about the style of home that will be built as part of this great project.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thanks for your time this afternoon. Commissioner Teal, happy to see you today. Hope everything is well in your personal life. We do have some exhibits we'd love to show today. High level, I just had a couple of prepared remarks that I'd like to share with the three of you as I lead into that. My fear is that you're going to think that I'm a greedy developer that is trying to force density and tract homes into this community. You're going to think that I have zero regard for environmental impacts and quality of life for the residents. The truth is that the natural and built environment is what drew me originally to the timbers at the Pinery. Given the comp plan designation for our site as an urban and not rural parcel, the most expedient and least presumptive path forward was to request a straight zone to suburban residential. While the gross density allowed under this zoning designation is over 4 units per acre, it is also the only straight zoning available to achieve 1 unit per acre. Even if the final site plan were to be only 4 to 6 homes, SR is still the only straight zone available to achieve a lot size below 1 acre at our site. After meeting once with High Prairie Farms Metro District and twice with the neighbors, we have amended our site each time. High Prairie Farms Metro District 2 years ago let me know they had concerns with density and would not be open to sharing in regional detention facilities. Since that time, we have assumed on-site detention and have not re-engaged High Prairie Farms Metro District as we have not sought their regional detention facilities or financial benefits of their district. Neighbors expressed concern for the amount of lots noted in our traffic study and the will serve letters from the Pinery Water and Wastewater, and we took that feedback as well as concerns for the semi-custom homes that we've built in Boulder County and amended our approach to reduce our lot count substantially and bring in a fully custom builder with active projects in Douglas County and Parker. We have shared the following slides with neighbors since Planning Commission and are confident sharing them before Board of County Commissioners today as representations of the type of site plan and quality of home we hope to bring to the timbers. We hope that it is evident from our submittals today that we meet the standards for rezoning and that we will continue to meet the requirements for subdivision approval going forward in an effort to complement and enhance the site in a manner that meets or exceeds the standards for the timbers. Thank you for your time and consideration for this rezoning request. Carolyn, if you don't mind, the next slides that you'll see are active projects that are being built by Affinity Homes. Cade Bader is the principal there, and as mentioned previously, it was very clear that our product that we build in Boulder County did not meet the standards for the timbers. We build a semi-custom product that is not in keeping with the surrounding area. We then engaged all the approved builders on the Pinery and Timbers websites, and ultimately were referred to Cade Bader with Affinity Homes. These are projects that he has actively, bless you, Carolyn, that he's actively working on currently. This is in Douglas County. This is a front elevation of a home. Each of the homes that you'll see today are in excess of 6,000 square feet livable. Some of them are, the finished square footage alone is over 6,000, and the homes, including garage spaces, et cetera, are over 10,000 square feet for the homes. They're not a tract home product because this is not a tract home community. Let's see here. Here's a side elevation for that project here in Douglas County. A rear elevation. And then another side elevation. This is a project that he is currently working on in Prospect community. This home, while modest on paper, is 7,800 livable square feet. And then here's the third home shown that is currently in development here in Parker. 4-car stall garage, just north of 7,000 square feet. Market value for these homes, anywhere from $2 to $4 million, based on what he's doing right now. Anything else? Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Anything else from the applicant? Okay, let me open it up for any questions from the Board of County Commissioners.
So for the applicant, where are you on your talks with the Metro District, with High Prairie Farms?
We have met with High Prairie Farms, and then we are willing to continue that conversation as we move into the subdivision process to understand if that partnership can work, which I think could be mutually beneficial.
And I think I heard you say that they had asked you to reduce the number of lots, and you did accommodate their request. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I don't have any more questions for the applicant.
Thank you. I'm going to dovetail on that a little bit. What's the number of lots that you initially applied for, and then what was the reduction based upon the community conversation?
So initially, not as part of the application, but as part of discussion with the neighborhood community before we made our application.
Okay.
There was a look for 27 lots.
27 lots. Okay.
It became very clear, as John, our developer, mentioned, that was not the right fit, and we understood that from the community feedback. The application, I believe, the application lists 12 or less, excuse me, 12 or less homes. And we're showing you that really we're at a level of 8 or 10 homes with this development.
So you're at 8 or 10 now?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's continuous reduction in density based on the continuous feedback we've heard from the neighborhood.
Well, I want to pause on that. I mean, I'm a former commercial real estate attorney, spent a lot of time in land use. That's a pretty significant concession. And I'm really pleased that the community has engaged and that you've been responsive. I mean, in my time here and in the Planning Commission, I don't know that I've seen a reduction at that level. That's certainly significant. So thank you for sharing that. Additional questions from the board?
No questions.
Okay.
Just to add to that, if I can, that is really what's taken more than a year of time to bring ourselves forward to the board, is John, the developer, finding that opportunity, exploring those options on how to marry the feedback we've heard on density with a fully custom builder that can bring that feasibility together. And that partnership is really what's allowed us to come here forward today and make sure that not only can we take that feedback and implement it, but it is feasible.
Yeah. And you may not know this, and maybe this is a question for the developer, but what is the median home price in the adjacent neighborhoods?
Currently, there are a number of active homes adjacent at 1.6. There are some that have gone as high as 2.5 to 3. There are active lots being sold just northeast of us, finished lots stubbed with dry utilities that are priced anywhere from 300 to maybe low 400s.
Okay. So if this were to be approved after build-out, would these serve as comps that could significantly appreciate these home values, these existing home values in adjacent neighborhoods?
I do think so, yeah. Our goal, again, was to complement the built environment. So what we build would be comparable to what has gone on north of us on Regal Oak, et cetera, with several of the custom modern homes, shed roof styles, a lot of Vail Mountain type properties that we're starting to see make their way to the Front Range.
Sure. So you're saying ultimately for these neighbors, they would see a net appreciation in their own home values?
I would think so. In my communication with several of the owners and then the HOA presidents since the Planning Commission, I let them in as best I can to our back of the envelope math that this project does not work without a high sales price home. There's no way to make the project pencil without a high average sales price on the properties.
Yeah, okay. And what adjustments have you made since the Planning Commission hearing? Any? Or was that the...
No, thank you for asking. Yeah,
Yeah.
so going into that, we were very intentional to under-promise and over-deliver, and I think that has been received as trying to play games or be coy. So we haven't shared a lot plan prior to post-Planning Commission. We hadn't shared, architectural renderings, and part of that on the architectural side was us finalizing our agreement with Affinity Custom Homes. We build a nice product in Lafayette and Boulder. It's not what you see here, and I didn't want to take a first swing in a community like this. That's not something that you do to these homeowners. So since then, we've been able to finalize our agreement with Affinity, so we feel comfortable sharing those, and we have shared those. Additionally, it was sharing the conceptual site plans, knowing that yes, we're still moving forward to subdivision phase. There's a very real possibility that if, Commissioner Thomas, to your question regarding engaging the Metro District, we haven't done that because we've aimed to be self-sufficient based on a high level of resistance out of the gate. But there's a tremendous amount of cost savings for us to not have on-site detention. So if we're able to do that, it also provides for some ponderosa pines that can stay in the center of the lot. Because on our site plan, we bulb straight up the center. If we can carve around the east side of the lot where there are less trees and it's closer to the regional detention facilities that have already impacted the natural environment, we allow that type of S-curve to allow ponderosa pines to stay on the site undisturbed outside of whatever fire mitigation would be required at subdivision.
Okay. So Planning Commission didn't see these renderings?
Correct. No, this is a more robust presentation today than what we had for Planning Commission.
Have citizens seen these renderings before today?
We did send an email with what I just showed you, as well as the site plans. We sent that to 3 homeowners, including the HOA president. I didn't hear back, so I'm not sure if those were disseminated or not. He's usually been quite responsive, so I would assume that they've seen them.
Okay. Well, I have to say, I think just on first blush, I'm interested to hear from the citizens. I don't want to predetermine any outlook, but the renderings are gorgeous, obviously, and any representations you make here are part of the conditions for approval. So I think it's important that you're putting this on the record for this community. So thank you for that.
Actually,
sure. Yes, Commissioner
if I may, a question did arise. And I apologize to the applicant, but I'm going to address a couple questions with staff as well, and then come back to you. So first question for staff. Under suburban residential, what is the max density allowed under suburban residential zoning, please?
Carolyn Washi Freeland for staff. Suburban residential, it says that density shall not exceed 4.36 dwelling units per acre.
Okay. Second question for staff. If we consider like a tiered zoning that is allowed in Douglas County, our next size lot intention in terms of zoning, if I'm correct, would be rural residential. And what is our density allowance? What is our, for planning purposes, what is our usual minimum lot size versus maximum in terms of acreage?
Okay, so the next zoning district would be the estate residential zoning district.
Thank you.
And that would be 1 dwelling unit per 4.9 acres to 1 dwelling unit per 2.5 acres in size.
Okay. So to the applicant, you guys are making pretty steep concessions in terms of the maximum lots, and yet you've asserted that, suburban residential is the most straightforward zoning methodology. Now, I apologize if I didn't get your exact words right there, but I think I captured it. Can you explain to me a little more detail about why that is the most straight method to obtain zoning for this property in a subdivision?
I'm happy to comment on my approach, and then Dan will step in to put it more eloquently and professionally, most likely. When we first looked at the project, in my experience, a PD has been something that we've used to shoehorn in something that's not allowed by a straight zoning. If there's a PD, there is a bit of a horse trade that goes on for, well, okay, now we want park, now we want this, and we come back and say, great, I'd like a 5,000 square foot lot. And not only do we have that horse trade, but it's typically on much larger parcels or infill parcels where we're a great example is a PD I'm a part of in Lafayette that was a 6-acre parcel with 30 paired homes on it. But that had 2 pocket parks, a street dedication, certain lighting requirements that were then dedicated to the city, maintenance, things like that. This site didn't lend itself to that because it appeared as though there was an existing zoning that allowed us to accomplish our goals without needing to go the PD route. For lack of a better term, I feel like sometimes a PD can be a Trojan horse. That wasn't our goal here. We wanted to, out of the gate, approach this from a what's in the zoning code, what it would allow for residential development, and that's what we wanted to pursue on our application, something that would speak the most common language between applicant and staff and county.
Okay.
Thank you. And additional questions from Board of County Commissioners?
I have none.
Okay, with that, I know we've had some really patient citizenry here with us, and we always say we work for you, not the other way around. With that, I'd like to open it up for citizen comment, and we'll start with citizen comment in the room. If you do have citizen comment, in the interest of efficiency, I want to ask you to just line up at the podium here. If you can just state your name and where you're from. You'll each have 3 minutes to comment if you'd like, and if you do represent an HOA or a metro district, you'll have 6 minutes. I would ask if you hear comments that are duplicative or maybe shared what you had already heard, feel free to you don't have to comment if you've already heard that, but we certainly are open to hearing all of those. So we'll start right here. Yes, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you so much for listening to us. My name is Klaus Fischer, address 5691 Regal Oak Lane, just north of this particular property. You actually saw it in one of those pictures, our home. I'm a senior executive in a software business, and I'm representing the voice of 100 of our neighbors who sent about 150 letters of objection for this particular project as it was filed previously with all of you. So this is a very important statement. The Manhart project does not conform, based on what we heard and heard previously, does not conform with the Douglas County 2040 Comprehensive Master Plan. Section 215C and C1 specifically state that any new development must complement and enhance the character of the built and natural environment and the existing pattern of adjoining neighborhoods, including density, scale, and design. Based on that, I have 3 key objections. Number 1, Manhart proposes a 40% higher density. That's what's in the official records. That's what was presented to us. I can't speak to these gorgeous renderings and beautiful pictures over here. I don't even know how these homes fit on the lots they described, quite frankly. Don't even know if this builder exists. Is there a website of this builder? So they proposed a 40% higher density than the surrounding timbers, and that does not conform with the county master plan. If you look at the timbers area 70, where we all live, that density of that area 70 is 0.9 dwelling units per acre. Manhart proposed 12 homes, that's what we always heard, 12 homes, which is a density of 1.3 dwelling units per acre, and that's 40% higher. So that does clearly not conform. There's no specific contributions to walking trails and pocket parks. Even the comment we just heard of pocket parks is not referring to their pocket park, is a pocket park which already exists in our neighborhood, which we paid for. So this plan would not confirm. Manhart also fails to address the potential environmental and aesthetic impact of their development. There is no tree preservation plan we have seen. There are probably 200 plus ponderosa pines. Are they mainly getting cut down? Question mark. There is very little to no consulting of the High Prairie Farms Metro District for water drainage and erosion. and they were not in favor of the proposed development as we heard of it over the last several months. And Manhart said in their development, in their write-up, that this is supposed to be a transitional density. Transitional density, what does that mean? Where we are transitioning from and to would be the question. And there is no need, because there is no commercial or industrial structures or infrastructure around which needs to be transitioned. And I personally agree, if I may say that, with the commissioners Rahn, Rodas, Corbo, and Longmire, who all voted against this development and shared their deep concerns, and they highlighted no proper community outreach. Twice we were contacted. No proper community outreach, density too high, negative impact on erosion, drainage, Timber Creek trees, and facilities. So thank you for considering that. I can't speak to these pictures which just showed up.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to hear us today. My name is Chris Gregg. I'm representing the HOA for Timbers 30A. I'm Vice President of the board. Briefly, I'd just like to address, I've broken it down to essentially 6 points here. But first being really a lack of vision from the developer from as a resident, what we see. The scope and size of the homes, the quality, the type of home has changed multiple times with very little impact or very little input from the homeowners nearby. As stated before, twice within a year, I don't think is acceptable outreach. The community is composed of homes in the $2+ million range, and according to this newest revision, appears that they're trying to address that price point wise by reducing it to the 8 to 12. However, 10,000 square foot homes are not going to fit on the lots that they proposed. So I don't see how that's going to be possible. For example, my home is 3,900 square feet above grade and sits on 0.57 acres. I seriously don't see how you can put a 10,000 square foot home on a 0.75 acre lot and maintain the same setbacks. Excuse me, I'm just trying to go through my notes so I don't miss something. It appears to us that the developer is scrambling to pull this together now because they have sunk costs into this and they're trying anyway to get it put together. But again, this goes back to the lack of vision and seeing exactly what the plan was from the beginning, because they started off wanting to cram in a bunch of tract homes. When they got the pushback from the community, now we've adjusted to this. But again, not a real plan in place. The builder that they've proposed, and this has only come up in the last 2 weeks, so within the last year, this is the first we've been pointed to any builder. The builder proposed is Affinity Homes. I've worked in the home building business for the last 8 years. I work for the largest home builder in Colorado. That's not to say that I know all builders out there, and especially custom builders. There's many of them, but one I've never heard of. So I did try to do a little research on the builder and find out what they've done and what they have in the past. The builder's only web presence is a Facebook page. The web page linked from their Facebook page is a parked page on GoDaddy, so they don't actually have a web page displaying any of their prior products, any of their construction projects they've done in the past. Their Facebook page does show primarily remodels. So I question the builder, I question their ability to deliver a product that would fit the standards of the Timbers community. And I guess essentially the last piece of it really just comes back to the lack of outreach. I really don't feel like they've made the appropriate effort to reach out to us. The drainage and erosion issue has not been addressed whatsoever. The idea that they're going to use the existing detention pond that services our homes, to me, seems laughable. I can tell you anecdotally, I don't know what the total volume of stormwater is that detention pond can handle, but as it is currently, when we get a heavy rain or a heavy snowstorm and that runoff goes, that entire detention pond is filled up. And I've seen it filled up completely to the sidewalk, which is roughly 14 feet deep, I would say. That poses some serious issues because the runoff from that detention pond carries down Timbers Creek, and in the last 2 years, there's been several, I'd say $2 to $3 million worth of construction done to mitigate the erosion problems that are happening on Timbers Creek with the current setup. So adding additional homes that are going to run off into that existing detention pond is going to be inadequate, and it appears that they've not planned for that, have not consulted with High Prairie on the use of that, or adding additional detention ponds to satisfy that additional runoff. So those are my main points. I would respectfully request that the commission follows through with what the Planning Commission did and deny the request for the rezoning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Jeff Breer, Majestic Oak Lane, adjacent to the proposal. I'm speaking before you today in strong opposition to the proposal to rezone and allow development at 9511 Democrat Road. Most compelling reason I can offer was brought up during the November 20th meeting where 80% of the Douglas County Commissioners voted to oppose any rezoning changes. It was brought up as a matter of fact that once zoning changes from A1 agriculture to SR suburban residential, there is no legal recourse or enforcement of any kind to prevent that plot of land from being fully developed as suburban residential. This means that despite any false promises that the developer only plans to build 8 to 10 homes on that site, he can legally build over 40 homes on that plot of land, and there's nothing you can do to prevent that. Like a true snake oil salesman, he's going to tell you what you want to hear, and the way homes will be similar in style to pre-existing homes in the neighborhood. Lot sizes will be comparable, that they will complement surrounding architecture. There won't be any additional drain on natural resources like water, that the traffic study shows minimal impact to residents already there. These charlatans even told us that the price point of their homes would go up to $5 million because they thought we were naive enough to believe that someone willing and able to spend $5 million on a home would want a cookie-cutter home in a high-density neighborhood. These developers don't live in the Pinery, Parker, or even Douglas County. Like a true used car salesman, they want to take their profits, leave behind a permanently ravaged neighborhood, and enrage residents. If you were to access their own website at northstarproperty.com, and my wife just did, you would see their own map showing no less than 26 property divisions, despite them telling you they intend to only build 8 to 10 sites. I'm not a developer, but I doubt you can recoup the expense of building roads, extending gas, water, and electric services, and the myriad of other expenses by passing them on to just 8 or 10 homes. I'm not a developer, but I am an engineer, educated and trained at the United States Air Force Academy. I can tell you that every time we add driveways, roadways, sidewalks, rooftops, etc., rain and snow melt can't be absorbed, and the runoff leads to erosion, groundwater contamination, and flora and fauna habitat destruction. This overdevelopment can't be undone and leads to permanent destruction of the natural open spaces that make the Pinery unique and desirable. Douglas County has already absorbed a substantial financial bill for erosion mitigation along the creek in the Pinery. I find it personally offensive that the developers aren't going to live here, hence they don't care about the impact of the neighborhood. Don't let non-resident developers ravage our neighborhood, take their profits, leave us with a permanently less desirable living community. Please consider the impact that rezoning this parcel of land will have on the entire ecosystem that we call home, and give careful consideration before destroying our neighborhood. Now, I know math in public is difficult, but you heard 193 lots on 217 acres, and their answer was it was 0.89. Again, math in public. 193 lots, 217, I think that's more than 1 acre per. And you also heard that suburban residential is 4.36 units per acre, which leads me back to more than 40 lots on this land that can be developed. And once you change the zoning, you have no way of putting that back in the box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Sheldon Irish. I live at 7978 Sestina Way. I've been a 19-year resident of the Timbers. What I'm here to do is in opposition to Manhart, North Star's push to defer conceptual drainage, engineering, and maintenance agreements with the High Prairie Farms Metro District regarding the Timbers Creek activity and the detention ponds. And I want to note, detention pond doesn't mean they hold the water. Detention pond still means you flow water into Timbers Creek. 9511 Democrat is currently a natural drainage area flowing into Timbers Creek. Manhart detention pond plans add more directed volume of water, which is the problem we're having with Timbers Creek, to an already compromised Timbers Creek. 9511 Democrat is outside the Metro District boundaries. Manhart North Star is not bound to mitigate further Timbers Creek drainage or erosion concerns. It is the Metro District's problem, thus it's the county's problem. In 2018, Urban Drainage, now Mile High Flood District, published this report. We gave a copy to the Planning Commission. And in this report, in part, they say Timbers Creek has seen an increase in intense flash flows due to changing urban drainage patterns at the adjacent neighborhoods. 9511 Democrat is an adjacent neighborhood, and they would flow into it. The restoration costs to date, the restoration costs were estimated at $8 to $10 million by Urban Drainage. $2 million has been spent on 2 projects to date, and most of that funding has come from Douglas County. Commissioner Layden, you and I walked parts of Timbers Creek in 2019 with a few neighbors. The damage is worse than it was when you saw it in 2019. Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Teal, as part of the Mile High Flood District Board, you would have been briefed on projects and funding requirements to mitigate the erosion damage on Timbers Creek. You didn't hear anything in the presentation from the developers about Timbers Creek and tried to mitigating the problems. Manhart did acknowledge discussions with the Metro District 2 years ago with their larger density proposal, very limited definition. So as you would expect, the Metro District made no agreements. And none have been tried to since then, even through all these reductions in density. The Metro District did provide DC Planning referral letter in July, and I quote, "The Metro District welcomes the opportunity to work with the developer to achieve an acceptable project that is more consistent and compatible with the surrounding area." This position is contrary to what North Star has recently said, that they would not agree to a density. Manhart should be required to reach out an agreement to the Metro District and discuss concepts for a better drainage approach and responsibilities for maintenance of Timbers Creek and 9511 Democrat open space and drainage. This discussion could potentially lead to protecting more existing mature trees, which you just heard him state a few minutes ago. The situation with Timbers Creek, 9511 Democrat, overall drainage should be given special consideration, especially given the county funds that are being used to mitigate the damage that's been caused. Just saying that the developer will meet county drainage requirements should not be acceptable considering the Timber Creek situation, which we're showing incompatibility with the existing requirements. I request that you deny the rezone request until Manhart and the Metro District come to a conceptual agreement. This is not a topic to let go unresolved until after rezoning is approved. It's a current problem that needs to be mitigated. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. And Merry Christmas to you, too.
And I can leave this if you want to review it.
You know, if you could approach our county attorney, he'll label that as an exhibit. Okay. And Attorney Garcia, if you want to just label that for the record. And while he's doing that, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ryan Westervelt. I live at 5643 Sunridge Drive, and that's very close to 9511 Democrat. I've lived in the area since I was 7 years old. I strongly oppose the Manhart North Star's rezoning application due to the negative impact it would have on the established trees on the property. The Timbers name is a tribute to the thousands of majestic ponderosa pine trees that inhabit the area. They are an integral part of our community and enrich our quality of life and our property values alike. Simply put, they are irreplaceable in our lifetimes, considering the age of many of them date back to the Civil War era. Each tree should be considered a historic relic from Colorado's earliest days. The best way to think about 9511 Democrat Road as it currently exists is not as a vacant parcel of land, but rather a 9-acre forest. There are no less than 200 ponderosa pine trees that reside on the property. In their application, Manhart North Star provided only basic details concerning the fate of these trees. In the various renderings and maps that we've been provided by Manhart, such as on page 246 of their application, a common theme exists. In each case, lots are oriented around an access road that would occupy the center of the parcel, and that's regardless of the number of lots. It is important to note that the majority of the trees stand in the center of that property. The developer's project plan states that dedicated efforts will be made to maintain the property's pre-development appearance. However, it is very difficult to believe that the installation of infrastructure alone in the form of roads, sidewalks, water and sewer lines, gas, electric, etc. won't devastate these trees. And furthermore, the excavation for multiple individual foundations must be considered. As we've seen in new developments in the area, even if it is the intention of the builder to preserve trees on the lot, the excavation can easily compromise the extensive root system of these pines, which can kill them in a matter of days. The developer has also stated the possibility of creating stormwater runoff facilities, which will inevitably result in a higher impact on the trees on the west side of the property. As a result, it would be prudent for the developer to procure an agreement with the High Prairie Farms Metro District in a simultaneous effort to preserve as many trees as possible and mitigate the impact on an already overutilized Timbers Creek. Such an agreement has not been reached and remains a big concern. I understand that a tree preservation plan is not technically required at this time. However, and not to repeat everybody else, but Objective 2-15C of the master plan requires new developments to complement and enhance the character of the built and natural environment. Considering these trees, these century-old trees are an indispensable part of our community, a detailed plan should be absolutely requisite when considering any rezoning proposal in this area. As Mr. Madison pointed out earlier, there has already been extensive impact on the trees in the area due to new development. Therefore, I strongly urge you to reaffirm the Planning Board's decision and deny this application. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Dale Rush. I live at 5611 Sunridge Drive. My property borders the subject parcel on the east side. And first of all, I just want to say there has been no public outreach. I've not been contacted once, and I live next to it. I've made at least 15, 20 phone calls to Manhard trying to have a conversation. Not one phone call was ever returned. There hasn't been public outreach. It's like it changes every time they present something. So I automatically don't trust any of this crap. So right away, I'll say that my lot is 1.5 acres. My neighbor to the north is 1.6. And in that subdivision 29A, you could tell from on the aerial photos that there was a great intent to preserve all the trees because they're all there still. And on the north side of the subject parcel is a 12.7 acre open space parcel with hundreds of trees. That's beautiful. That was preserved. That maybe could have been developed, I don't know. What they also don't show on the aerials or the exhibits are the drip lines and root systems of these trees. And they cannot put 8 or 10 lots on this parcel and preserve all those trees. And if you saw where the lots were, a lot of those trees, and they were just little tiny circles, their drip line is 40 feet. They cannot preserve these trees. It just doesn't work. So I would ask that you deny the request. And I moved in there a couple years ago knowing there was the potential for development, and with the belief that the county would protect our rights and do what's right. And I ask you to do that today. I think I'm a professional land surveyor, been licensed in Colorado for almost 30 years, done developments all over Douglas County. I've seen it done right, and I've seen it done wrong, and this is wrong. With 9 acres, the number of trees, the surrounding area, this property will allow no more than 6 lots, and I think 3 is appropriate. And I would just ask that you deny this request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon again. My name's Katie Barrett, and I live in Castle Rock. As always, I'm concerned about the environment, particularly water in Douglas County. On all these planning submissions, there's no mention of how much water will be used, as well as how are we going to get this water. The other part about building is I am so happy multimillionaires have options about buying houses. I'm a retired school teacher. What is Douglas County doing to build and expand affordable housing for our service people? Teachers, police, firefighters, nurses. I just want to bring it to your attention that I am unhappy with the way you are planning projects.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. Katie Morris, 9696 East Democrat Road. I'm here on behalf of not only myself, but past and future generations of my family. My family has been on Democrat Road since 1950. Democrat used to be a dirt road, and it used to be that if a car drove down the road, you'd look up to see who it was because you probably knew them. Now, just getting out of our driveway feels like a gamble because of all of the traffic and the speed. I grew up riding horses where many of you now live. My family and I have seen so many changes with every new development. There's more traffic, more trash, more noise, and more challenges. It seems that no matter where you go in Douglas County these days, there's a new development, and I'm wondering when enough is enough. Although the applicant has reduced the number of lots, again, tonight, it's still higher density than the surrounding areas. If this is rezoned as suburban residential, there's the potential for up to 40 homes, regardless of what the developer is currently proposing. That concerns me greatly, that if it gets rezoned, anything could happen. The applicant's plan with the lots, this is the first time that we've seen that. And I also was wondering about the setbacks. Setbacks were mentioned on the neighboring properties, but I'm wondering about the setback against Democrat Road. In the staff report attached to the agenda, Objective 9.1B indicates that this property does not show any wildlife migration paths or crossing areas. I'm wondering, how often is the CMP Wildlife Resources map updated? There's still construction going on adjacent to this property. So the idea that it doesn't impact wildlife is hard to believe. With all of the new construction, the only open space wildlife has available to move from our property to the north is the property in question. It is not uncommon to see a herd of 15 to 20 deer resting beneath the ponderosa pines on the property at any given time. In fact, just this morning, there were 8 resting comfortably there. I fully respect the landowner's right to get value out of their property. I'm simply asking that the county commissioners and the developers carefully consider the capacity, not only for water, drainage, and traffic, but also the increase in light and noise pollution, in addition to the quality of life in this community that we all call home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Job, and I live at 5653 Sudridge Drive, which is just to the east and north of the subject property. So I'm one of Dale Rush's neighbors, and I look directly into this piece of property from my backyard and from my deck. I don't have prepared remarks. If I did, it would be what he and she said all the way through this. There's been a lot of good comments. The proposed concepts that were shown today by the developer and their representatives are new, and we've not seen these before. I'm in the building industry. I came from a job, so I'm not as eloquently dressed as others, but nonetheless, I cannot see where these homes that were shown on the presentation by the developer would fit on the 0.75 or approximately 0.75 acre lots. It's just not possible in maintaining the character of the area. So the other even more important consideration would be the drainage issue. This really needs to be addressed before any process of development is even considered. It is part and parcel to the critical nature of an appropriate development there. Like Dale Rush mentioned, when I looked at this piece of property, I found that it would be difficult to squeeze 6 homes in there in an appropriate manner. I would second his assessment that 3 would be more appropriate. The other primary concern is once this goes to suburban residential, there is no control on what would happen to the actual density build out. So these are significant issues. I'm concerned about them from a personal point of view, but also from a community point of view and an environmental point of view. I would urge that the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners reject the plan that's been put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I go to online comment, let me just double check and make sure that there is not any more citizen comment from the room. Anybody else from the room? I know you guys have taken time to be with us, and this is not a convenient time of day to be here, so I just want to honor your time. Anybody else in the gallery? Okay, so with that, let me open it up for citizen comment online. Any citizen comment online with regard to this item?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. I have a couple of folks.
Okay.
First one will be Jan and Richard Schultz.
Okay, welcome.
Hi, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Jan and Richard Schultz. We live at 5171 Shade Tree Lane in Parker, which is in the Timbers 24 Homeowners Association. And we think that the planning board was absolutely appropriate in not approving this project. We have participated in 2 Zoom meetings where the presenters, contractors, builders answered questions with less than a specific or what we perceived as a straight true response. And now it's becoming very obvious to us that no matter what the questions are, when they're asked, the answers are always different, as things don't seem to be consistent. So our concern has been that when we moved here 3 years ago, we were told that all of the available space for housing was required to comply with the Timbers Planning 70 in terms of the size of the homes, the size of the lots, the ambiance, the open space, the flood control, the wildlife, the tree mitigation, and all of the other considerations. And we actually think that the planning board's decision not to approve this was absolutely spot on. So we're asking that as the commissioners, you recognize that and you also not approve it. I think you've heard today from numerous people that this is not the right project, and especially concerning the fact that if it goes from agriculture to SR1, we have seen that the builder and the planning group, if you will, of this project, we have no reason to believe that it wouldn't be built out to the maximum of that zoning, and that's simply not appropriate at this point in time. If there is ever an approval on it, we would ask that it would be a consideration of an approval with a stipulation that it would only be X number of units on that parcel, and considering the wildlife, the trees, the environment, the water, the flood, and then how it's going to be an accent and an appreciation to the environmental area around it, and also an appreciation of value for all of the existing homes. We thank you very much for listening to us, and thank you again for allowing us to contribute through Zoom, WebEx, because we are unable to attend in person.
Well, thank you, ma'am. And I'll just say, this is your meeting, not ours. This is your government, and so we're here to listen to you either in person or online. So thank you for joining us. Additional citizen comment online.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Next will be Stephen Caskey. I apologize if I misspoke on your pronunciation, but you are unmuted. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Caskey. I live at 5708 Regal Oak Lane, and I am immediately north of the subject property. I thank the commissioners for their time and attention today. I had prepared notes, just like everyone else, very thorough details about this. And as per the usual with this developer, we're upended. It's a moving target because everything changed today. At the end of the day, I'm setting my notes down, and I just want to talk to you as a person immediately next to a neighbor to this community, someone directly impacted by this, as all my neighbors are. This developer has been anything but transparent, honest, and forthright with the neighbors and with their approach to this community. And I fully expect them to continue this process. I saw nothing regards to proposed designs, even though we requested many times for proposed layouts of this property prior to them bringing it on the board today. This property, or this build out, started as 28 properties. They looked at it, and at some point in time, they thought it appropriate to shoehorn 28 properties on there. how they came to that conclusion to begin with is stunning. Then it went down and down. And the last meeting a few weeks ago, it was 12. Today it's 8 to 10. What's it going to be next week? It's my firmly held belief that they're willing to tell the commission literally anything that they think needs to be heard in order to get approval and then do what they want. Their unwillingness to talk and reach out to the neighborhoods and the communities is the loudest thing that we hear. When we're hearing these changes and designs here at a meeting and having them never presented to us in the last few weeks is amazing. They do not reach out to us, they do not communicate with us, they do not let us know their intentions because they're fear of pushback. They didn't get the answer that they wanted from the water district, so they just went out on their own. They didn't like what we had to say, so they just kept us out of the conversation. In this particular case, at the last meeting, they used numbers from Pinery, even though they're directly adjacent to Timbers, because their models clearly didn't work in conformation to Timbers' dwelling unit sizes. So they just took another property that was not adjacent to them to use those numbers, again, to further their goal. At the end of the day, I think what you're hearing from all of us neighbors is that they're not communicating, they're not being forthright, they're a moving target, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and a lot of them very critical regarding this build-out. And while it's very noble, we all support having more housing, especially in this tight housing situation that we all have, let's be honest, we are talking about 8 multi-million-dollar homes that is not feeding into the generalized need of housing, but instead is a builder that is deliberately capitalizing on the value established by the properties around them by creating a substandard property shoehorned into a very small parcel to increase their value and enrich in their pockets based on what we did prior. And I ask you to reject it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any additional online comment?
Yes, sir, I do have one more. This will be Ed Leichman. If I pronounced that right, I apologize. Ed, go ahead.
It's actually Lickman, L-I-K-M-A-N. I'm at 5750 Regal Oak Lane. I also own a property at 9587 Majestic Oak Drive, and I'm the president of Timbers 30A HOA. And I apologize for not being there in person. I'm a bit under the weather today, so if I'm not making myself clear, I apologize for that. I don't want to repeat, and so I won't. But board member Priscilla Ron on 11/20 stated that voting to allow a rezone to suburban residential would essentially provide any developer with the ability to apply for up to 44 dwelling units on this 9.25 acre plot. And that struck a chord with me. As a 6-year resident, and I represent 23 property owners, I feel strongly that any approval for a rezone must take into consideration the objectives and experience of the developer against the interests of current property owners, including the objectives of the Douglas County Comprehensive Master Plan. In the almost 2 years since the developer initially filed their request with the county, only one aspect of their vision for this property is clear: to get it rezoned. They did start with 27 home sites, and now we're down to some number that's a lot less. Okay, that sends up a red flag to me. They've had no really meaningful consultation with any of the owners surrounding the properties. And they did send, John Graney sent me an email and sent it to 2 other residents. Why he didn't send it to all of the people he was required to notify subsequent to the planning board meeting, I don't know. But, I looked up Affinity Homes, and I looked up Kay and Bader. And quite frankly, I don't think any of that exists. I may be wrong, but if I can't find it online, if I can't find a website, if I can't find some information about individuals, and if that information wasn't presented to me, I'm not sharing that with other homeowners. And so I chose not to distribute that letter. Their project plan says they have acknowledged the concerns from over 100 of our residents. But aside from the obvious financial motive, we have no idea about their community plans, or even if they have the requisite development experience. It's actually not North Star, it's Northern Star, okay? That sends a little bit of a red flag to me too. In their application, Northern Star conducted 2 one-hour Zoom meetings with our residents in September of 22 and one of August this year. Those 2 calls were our only interaction with the developer. We followed up those calls with letters. We asked for detail about the type of homes, the developer, et cetera, et cetera. No response, 0. But what do we know about these folks? We know they want greater density of homes in the surrounding neighborhood. We know they're inconsistent. They claim their homes would be of similar quality and offered at or above current timbers pricing, which kind of seems counterintuitive given the density differential. But we do know they want to take advantage of the 384 acres of open space and amenities that are included in the timbers. And I also know that Mr. Graney has no intention of living here. I'm not convinced this developer has the aptitude, the experience, or the intent to properly develop this property. What have they demonstrated to us, 100 owners surrounding this property, to earn the right to a suburban residential rezone, where we could end up with a density of 4.36 dwelling units per acre, and we don't have any recourse? What causes me the greatest concern is that Northern Star Property LLC is not what they purport to be. From what I can determine, this LLC is an umbrella holding company for North Star Property and North Star Property Solutions, Inc. Apparently, these are separate entities, each with their own website. So I look at their websites. North Star Property Solutions buys properties, and I quote, in any condition or situation, end quote. They are not real estate agents. Rather, they are purchasers of homes. They specialize in rent to own. They appeal to wholesalers and flippers by offering creative financing, and I quote, throwing the normal rules concerning credit, debit ratio, and proof of income out the windows, end quote. That's in their website. They facilitate buying homes and flipping them. There's nothing wrong with that. But how does that translate to developing 9511 Democrat? North Star Property markets to property owners specializing in obtaining subdivision approvals, which is what they're doing right here. The site mentions nothing about residential building, home designs, or developing communities, what you might typically expect. It does, however, provide a very detailed...
I appreciate your comments, but your time...
over my time.
Yeah, if you could wrap up your comments, sir, I'd appreciate it.
I'm going to. These people are not who they purport to be. They're slick talkers. Well, somewhat slick talkers. And I would just ask the commission to uphold the vote of the planning board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Any additional online comment?
That will complete our online comments, sir.
Okay, thank you, Troy. And with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the Board of County Commissioners for any further discussion and or a motion.
I'm wondering if the applicant could rebut some of the comments they heard?
Please.
I'm sure Dan will have additional comments as well. I'll start with the character remarks. I have yet to say anything negative about any of the neighbors here. All of my interactions have been positive. I'll leave it there. Architecture not seen. As I mentioned, and as Mr. Lickman just mentioned, I sent out an email last week to 3 people that I had their email addresses. 2 of the people are here in this room. 1 is online. It included all of the information, including the contact information for Kate Bader at Affinity Homes. None of them apparently chose to reach out. I understand that. That's, again, happened since Planning Commission. To go back to your question earlier, Commissioner Teal, about architecturals and why things were brought about now, the feedback and guidance from the start has been that this is a zone We don't want to overpromise what will go on at the site. Many things change at subdivision. That's where you would want to bring forward a site plan and architecturals so as not to give the impression to neighbors that you are changing your tune. We've stuck to that, we've stuck to that, we've stuck to that until I reached a breaking point at Planning Commission and said, you know what? I will share everything that I can at this point, regardless of with the understanding that, hey, we're all adults. We know that the subdivision process will change what's allowed. There will be drainage studies that will be completed. There will be fire mitigation studies. There will be tree preservation studies. All of that will inform the density as well as the public feedback. So that has been the biggest reason why we haven't brought up site plans to date or architecturals, is with the understanding that things were in flux. As mentioned with Mr. Bader with Affinity Homes, that was only finalized in the last month. The architectural shown are projects that he has. If they want to reach out to them, to Mr. Bader, I'm sure that he would share the property addresses as long as those homeowners are comfortable sharing them. Those are custom homes currently being constructed by his company. To go back to the comment, if it's 4 or 6 lots, I just go back to the comment from before. It's still SR zoning at the end of the day that allows for this. Outside of a PD for a 9-acre site, this is what would allow for it. I think there's been some, we intentionally brought neighbors in during the zoning process to solicit early feedback. It was not a requirement, but it was something that we did. And because we have not been at subdivision, I think that there has been a lapse of expectations, because they're most likely usually brought in at that phase of subdivision and seeing architectural, seeing street signage, things like that. We intentionally, in an effort to gain goodwill, tried to bring people in early, and that did not happen, unfortunately. There was a comment on the home sizes. What was shown is 3,000 to 4,000 square feet above grade. So obviously, if you include a basement in that, you can easily get to a 5,000 to 7,000 square foot home pretty easily. In the Planning Commission hearing, there was comment made that several of the surrounding homes are 5,500 square feet or above. It would be in keeping. As far as a moving target on lot count, when we first met with High Prairie Farms, it was brought up as 27 lots. There was and also a request for an easement to the north for sanitary sewer. It was made very clear at that time that there would not be support for that. And the comment was made that, if you came in at 12 lots, we'd probably be more supportive of that. So we came back, and the site plan was updated to 12, and at planning hearing, we heard 8 to 9. So we went back and we said, okay, where can we get this done? And it sounds like 8 to 10 is probably where it can get done. And today I'm now hearing 3. So I understand the moving target, because I think we're all chasing the same moving target, unfortunately. As far as the websites, first and foremost, Northern Star Property LLC is a registered company name. North Star Property Solutions is a DBA. Our company started in 2014 doing fix and flips. We moved into spec home construction, custom home building, and large-scale residential entitlement. All of those things can be true. It doesn't mean that they're inapplicable to the site. We've done projects that are small infill projects. We've also done coastal projects in California and San Diego County that took 6 years to get approvals for 114 units for hospitality mixed use. That's not on my website. There's a site plan on the website for 27 homes that I've not taken down, because that was brought up years ago in a conversation, and this was addressed in my email 2 weeks ago to those 3 homeowners and the HOA president. I didn't want to give them the impression that I'm moving target, so I left it up there. Additionally, there are 2 employees that no longer work for me. My website is not a priority, I admit that. It doesn't mean that our developments are not a priority. And ultimately, I go back to at the end of the day, for us to move forward with 4, 6, 8, 10 units, suburban residential is the zoning that we have that allows us to do that.
Do my best to get through my notes here. Some of the things I heard, of course, was touching on zoning. I think we talked a lot about that. Most developments don't reach the maximum level that zoning allows. We're currently here today on record, on public record, in front of the neighbors, explaining how we got to where we did and what our plan is for the density. We've talked a lot about how this is the only zoning that's available to us via straight zoning. We did talk a little bit about rural residential and estate residential. I'm not sure either of those actually meet urban density, which is what the comp plan states. The SR zoning does. And the SR zoning allows for anything from one lot up to the ballpark of 40 that's being mentioned here. We know at the very least, nobody can go build 40 after this if zoning was approved. There are water dedications that are based on a much lower number than that, and you'd have to go back to that district to understand if further lots could even be handled by the water. You'd have to go back and adjust the traffic study, because the traffic study is based on 12 or fewer lots. That was a conversation that was directly had with engineering staff at the county. So there's detention that's based on smaller lot counts. So these things are there, and we're certainly here, the developers representing the partnership and the team and what they're willing to build that fits within the SUA, within compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. John did talk about the difference between zoning. Zoning is the first step. There is a subdivision process. The subdivision process certainly gets into more of those details, more of those final design items, and we expect to be there. We will do those items as required then, and we're looking to bring forward more of that information now beyond what's maybe necessarily required at zoning so that we can be more open to that. There was a moving target talked about, and John mentioned that. I think he put it well that we've seen that from both sides. Well, we felt, although we were already planning 8 to 10 lots at Planning Commission, we felt the 12 lot was a fair condition from where we started. We obviously heard feedback at the Planning Commission that wasn't enough. We've heard that from the neighbors that wasn't enough. So we're not trying to be inconsistent, we're trying to react to the feedback we've received along the way. There was some questions about detention. The goal we've tried to do is understand that there are options for detention. The development can be self-sufficient if needed. We are not within High Prairie Farms district today. This property is outside of that. It's not a guarantee that we can be included into their district. So we need to make sure that the plan and the application can work on its own, that we can provide detention if needed. If there's the ability to partner, we think that's a great idea. We certainly have stated and will continue to state we want to work with High Prairie Farms. We want to sit down with them and meet again as we work towards the subdivision process to understand how that partnership can work and what are those benefits for both groups. I think that's a great opportunity, and I think that's likely, but we have to get to that stage in the process. There was some discussion about the Timbers Creek, which is downstream. That study actually ends on the west side of Pinery Parkway. This property, nor the Timbers development to the north of this subject property, that creek doesn't come through these properties. They don't come adjacent to these properties. They are downstream. And that downstream study that was referenced is from 2018. And that was with Mile High Urban Drainage at the time. And that was looking at, the report is providing potential opportunities and ecological improvement suggestions. And that was based on the development of the Timbers as well as the rest of the overall Pinery PD where that channel comes through. And so in 2018, they identified some of those suggestions. That Timbers Creek is, as I understand it, part of urban drainage maintenance eligibility. So there's a close relationship working with urban drainage with that current condition. And I'm aware that urban drainage is also trying out new design applications along that creek. So urban drainage has been heavily involved in that process. And for a report that came out in 2018, since then there's been 2 filings that have been constructed within the Timbers development directly north of this subject property that relate to 76 lots. So 76 additional lots were approved to be constructed before this development comes forward with 8 or 10 lots on 9 acres. The percentages there on their own show a much smaller impact to that overall Timbers Creek. And I think, again, with discussions of potentially including the property in with High Prairie Farms Metro District, there could be a benefit there for both parties. I'm doing my best to remember the comments here. There was discussion on parks. With a 9-acre development, there are some limitations. We are certainly looking to follow Douglas County requirements for park options for parks, pocket park, and the feasibility of a pocket park on this size of a property with this size of density. So there is the option for fee in lieu for parks to pay in. That's allowed as part of the county process. And there is a regional park. There is a regional park, the Bayou Gulch, that is not very far away. And that is not within, as I understand it, the Timbers Development Group. That is a regional park that's for all of Douglas County, which this property could utilize. Again, there were some comments about a detention pond and detention pond capacity. If there is an opportunity to be part of the Metro District and share in that regional detention, further analysis would be done on that regional pond to understand its capacity, to understand its ability to handle 5% or less more development from this property. Those calculations, those analyses, and any improvements to that regional pond to accept further drainage would be analyzed, studied, and designed. So there would not be where we can just send our development flow there. There's further analysis, further studies, further design that would take place to prove that pond can function, and if there are improvements needed, those would be handled as part of this development. As part of the requirements of new development in general through Douglas County and urban drainage, detention, water quality is part of that. This development would handle that either on-site or, again, through the option of shared downstream. And those are based on detaining the flow so that you are releasing at a historic rate. And that would be no different for our development. There were some comments early on talking about trees on the property. I guess I disagree with some of the comments that look at the property and say it's a forest. I'm not aware of 200 trees on the property. I'll be honest, I don't know the exact count, but I do not believe it's 200. I would also not characterize it as a forest. I did look in my presentation at what the area looked like to the north within the Timbers development. I was not looking at the old pinery. I was looking at the Timbers development that was just built in the last 5 to 10 years. And I see that as having more trees, higher density of trees than this subject property. And again, I think scale is important here. We're looking at less than 5% land, less than 5% lots. John did mention the opportunities to, as we get into subdivision process, looking at the alignment of that road, looking at some of the things that can be done when we're into a further stage of design to see how we can work with those trees. And that's certainly what I intend to do as an engineer, what John intends to do as the developer. So We're not here trying to be sleazy. We're not here trying to say one thing and do another. We're here trying to react to the feedback we've gotten along the way, including the recent feedback at Planning Commission. And I think what we've presented and what we're trying to present and what's in our application is really the same. We're looking to develop in the same manner. We're looking to develop in the same way as what has happened all around the subject property in recent time. There was some talk about densities. As I presented, the density is looking to be either right below 1 lot per acre or just slightly above 1 lot per acre. And I think that's very similar, as I presented, to what we see in the surrounding development. And the lot size, again, is very similar to what we see in the surrounding development. The 2 adjacent lots to the east, there was a comment about their lot size, the existing lots in the Timbers development. Those are 2 of the larger lots, and those are called flag lots. And flag lots are utilized to get higher density. There's not enough street frontage to fit 2 additional lots within that filing of 29. So a flag lot, as it's called, is created, which allows the driveway to come forward and give you access to that street. So that's a product of additional density in the design of Timbers development to create that. And it is common to place those larger lots up against your property boundary, so there is adequate buffer within those lots when the development next door develops. Again, I talked about setback, and we're looking at 120 feet to 200 feet of setback between those 2 adjacent neighbors, because we understand those are the 2 directly adjacent neighbors to the property. So we're looking at those opportunities to expand that buffer. And again, I'm looking for comparisons because we're trying to be the same as the way the Timbers developed. And at the very north end of the Timbers, where it up fronts the older area, the previously developed pinery, there are Timbers homes and lots that went in adjacent to existing homes as part of the pinery. And those building-to-building setbacks were a minimum of 120 feet. So we're not looking to be different. We're looking to be very similar. We're looking to be the same. There was the term used, and that was brought up in public comment, about transition density. We did talk about transition density. We thought transition from the surrounding development to 12 lots made sense. We thought that was very similar. Again, the feedback we heard was that was not similar. That was too much of a stretch. So we've adapted, we've adjusted, we've presented 8 to 10 lots, which is no longer transition density as I presented. It's virtually the same density. There is no more traditional or transitional density. We're looking to be the same. There was one individual that commented about the type of housing and perhaps the use for the need for attainable housing. That's a change in the consistency we've heard on feedback. We've consistently heard feedback about home value and about not impacting the existing home value. So again, we've spent over the last year, we've spent time, each time we've met with the community, we've spent time since Planning Commission to try to adapt to those things. So to now hear a comment that they're not looking for equal home values to come in, but perhaps it should be considered to be a different product, that's a change from what we were hearing as well. So I'm certainly happy to answer any other specific questions if I didn't hit them all. But I think the point with this application is we have the developer at the table, we have the builder at the table, we have public record and presentations of what we're trying to do to match the surrounding neighborhood, to fit in with the comp plan, to fit in with the SUA requirements. And we're not trying to be different anymore. We're trying to be the same. And that's what the developer and the builder and the applicant has worked towards.
Great. Well, thank you for that responsiveness to citizen comment. Let me ask the board if there are any questions for the applicant or the applicant's representative.
I have no more questions. Thank you.
No more questions.
Well, I don't have additional questions. I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion and/or a motion.
So I appreciate everyone being here. This has been a long, complicated hearing. And I think what this boils down to is we are here to look at the private property rights of everyone involved, including the person who owns this parcel of 9+ acres that wants to develop it. And how we make our decision is by looking at all of these approval standards up here. And as all of you were speaking, I was writing notes, and it's on the screen right here that I was looking at them. And the first one that absolutely is clear that there has been a change is 2502.03, whether there has been a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood since the land was last zoned. And the land was last zoned, I think, in 1955. And I think what really struck me at the very beginning were the aerial photos of what the area looked like in 2011 and what it looks like now. So when you look at the pictures of 2011, there's lots of just open space and trees. And as the aerial photos changed, we saw more grading, more roads cut in, and more houses all around this parcel. And so I thought, absolutely, this area has changed, and this parcel doesn't look like the other parcels around it at all. I listened to what everyone said. Some of the notes that I have circled here talk about the transitional housing, which Mr. Madison says no longer are to be considered because they are looking at 8 to 10 homes. There was one person who wrote a letter, Mr. Kenneth Waugh, and I just copied the last page where he says, in conclusion, I believe nearly all of the issues raised in this letter can be addressed by reducing the density of the project to no more than 10 lots, and it goes on to say making it part of High Prairie Farms District. We're not here to talk about that, but the presentation is that they are willing to reduce it from 8 to between 8 to 10 lots when they started at 27. There's another item 2506.12 that talks about the changes in the character to the neighborhood. And this explains how there have been over 230 homes that have been developed recently that have changed the character of the neighborhood. And after listening to everyone, thinking about the central water, they are proposing central water for both water and sewer. So that appears to me that they are working towards renewable water, which will be a sustainable way to maintain this project into the future. In looking at the approval standards, it seems to me that all of the approval standards have been met. I'm interested in what my fellow commissioners say, but at this point, I believe that this project meets the criteria for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas, and I appreciate the thorough analysis in reference to our rezoning approval standards. It has been a long hearing, and I appreciate all of you for taking the time to ring in with your county government. Commissioner Teal.
I really appreciate the developer working with the neighborhood and taking the feedback and modifying the design. And the design is certainly an element for consideration, but it is not inherently under consideration in this meeting. It really is the zoning. And your design is getting to the edges of the extremes under the straight zoning that you're proposing. And you're getting to the very edge of what we'd go with estate residential versus suburban residential. That is admirable. Okay, I appreciate that. The only problem is, we're being asked to do a zoning here. And I'm just in concurrence with our planning commission that suburban residential is not the appropriate zoning. And for the reasons given by the planning commission. So I'd have to be a no, just because we are considering the rezoning of it. I like your design. I like where you're going. I like what your acceptance of the commentary you're getting from the residents that surround you, I think you have success if you keep going, but to just do the straight rezoning, as you guys were very patient with me to explain, I concur with our planning commission. It's not compatible as a rezoning option.
Well, thank you for that, Commissioner Teal. I think I referenced earlier, I've been at this for a long time as a commercial real estate attorney, as a planning commissioner, and now on this board of county commissioners, and I've seen a lot of applicants come through. In my experience, when there are a lot of citizens that show up, something went wrong. And usually that's engagement with the community, the appropriate notice and conversation. And, candidly, we interact with a lot of developers. And those that have, 10, 20, 30, 50, sometimes over 100 meetings with citizens, they end up with letters of support from citizens saying, hey, great plan. They made some concessions. There's some buffers. There's some berms. There's some pocket parks and streets and reduced congestion. And we like it. And we've had the conversation. What I really do not like hearing is that citizens feel like they have not been communicated with or that they have been misled. So that is a deep concern of mine. That said, I want to go back to the facts and the legal approval criteria. So I might ask our county attorney to reiterate this for us, but if all of these rezoning approval standards have been met, isn't it required that we approve the rezone, or is it discretionary?
It's not discretionary. There are some elements of this that might be considered subjective, but it is not discretionary.
Okay. So when I walk through each of these, I do think Commissioner Thomas makes a compelling and persuasive point that 01 through 08 have been met. And in fact, our staff report clearly states that specifically in 250203, there has been a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood. Now, if it were to the point of a particular individual who said, we need affordable housing here, let me first say that the county is actively working on workforce housing for teachers, veterans, those in the retail community to live and work here. That is not before us today, and I think we'd really have some upset citizens if we had, high density mixed use in this particular area. But to go from 40 to 27 down to 9. That is a really significant concession. I will also say that, I'm familiar with what happens at these hearings. And this is an inconvenient time. It's a long evening away from your families. You're hungry. You're tired. You have prepared comments. You don't communicate with county officials all the time. And so to be surprised with new renderings and to be caught off guard with a new plan when you already had a prepared statement and took the time to be here, it makes it really difficult to react on the fly. And so again, I think the benefit of having that community conversation before you get before us would have been beneficial. I suspect that if you had had a few more community meetings with those renderings and, the density of 9, that maybe there might have been some additional shift in conversation from the community. So I'm really wrestling with that because I don't like the way that we've been confronted with this, and we want to honor the will of our citizens. That said, I mean, just from a strictly legal standpoint, I do find that all of the rezoning approval standards have been met. What I would ask, and to be very clear from the record, the biggest issue I heard from citizens is that they don't believe you. They don't believe you. And so I need to know that if I'm going to approve this, that your commitments that you've made today, which caught everybody off guard, will be on the record and a commitment that you commit to going forward, i.e. The density is 9. You get the rezoning. It doesn't switch after we leave this meeting. And part B would be those renderings. A lot of testimony was around the fact that people don't believe that those renderings are real. They haven't seen the website. They're not familiar with this architect or this company. I would want to know and hear on the record that you are committing to architectural renderings that are the functional, that or the functional equivalent of that with a similar square footage and median home value. So let me start by just asking that of the applicant. Yeah.
Get to that. We had discussed even coming out of Planning Commission hearing, is it appropriate to put a development agreement in place to avoid any misunderstandings that going forward, the idea is 10 or less with compatible market-priced homes that are in keeping, that complement and enhance the surrounding area.
Okay, so both of those particular items you are committing to on the record?
Correct. On the record, we're committing to that.
Okay. Well, I find that deeply compelling. My charge is to be the elected representative of 400,000 citizens, including all of the esteemed individuals that took their time with us tonight. Based upon those commitments and the fact that you have met the legal approval criteria, I will be in favor. Thank you. Any additional comment or discussion from our board?
Yeah, I would just clarify, I still have reservations about being able to say that the development meets 250207. And again, I harken back to my comments about you're in that shoulder area of technical compliance. Your design, I think, is going in the right direction. If this was a state residential zoning, I would be a yes. I can't do it for suburban residential. And I do understand that we hold you to the commitments you make here. I mean, we were just dealing with another land use issue, though, where the original zoning and plating was done in 1994, and things change. So, I mean, I don't think it casts a character judgment on anybody to recognize that things change, and yet the zoning's the zoning. And owners change. I wish no one ill in their business, but developers change with their relationship to the owner. And so, yeah, I still see a lack of compliance with 250207. So I'm in concurrence with our Planning Commission on this one.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. Further discussion and/or a motion?
I have a motion to approve a resolution rezoning a parcel of land totaling 9.25 acres located in Douglas County, Colorado, from agricultural 1 to suburban residential, project file ZR 2022-017.
I'll second.
So there's a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
And that passes 2-1. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We do have a few more items, but we'll take a 5-minute recess for folks to clear out, and we'll reconvene.
Apologize for that. Okay, the Planning Commission heard the proposed changes to Class 1 home occupation standards at a public hearing held on December 4th, 2023. No public comments were received. The Planning Commission voted 6-1 to recommend approval. Commissioner Allen voted in opposition due to a lack of demonstrated public need to require the proposed changes. Staff also addressed questions on how HOA covenants relate to the proposed regulation changes, enforcement and the enforcement process in the event of a zoning violation, noise limits, and distinctions between a Class 1 and Class 2 home occupation. Currently, the DCZR does not allow Class 1 home occupation businesses to operate in accessory structures. The board has directed staff to propose regulations allowing this use in accessory structures in residential zone districts of Class 1 home occupation. The scale of use would be limited, so Class 1 would not rise to the level of Class 2. Limitations are based on lot size, whether the lot is less than 1 acre in size or 1 acre or greater. And the proposed gradation of square footage aligns with the gradation used to regulate the size of detached garages. After review of the referral comments and direction from the board during the post-referral board work session, staff has included new language related to HOA covenants. Okay. The referral period ran from August 11th to September 8th of this year. Public workshop was held on August 29th. 2 members of the public attended, but their questions were not related to the proposed zoning amendment. Rather, they had general zoning questions. In a post-referral board work session, the board directed staff to proceed with the amendment. All right, staff received 3 oppositional comments from HOAs. These came from the Burning Tree Ranch, Deerfield, and Happy Canyon HOAs. 3 referral agencies emphasized local control through HOA covenants and design control restrictions. And then the remainder of referral agencies provided no comment. As for staff assessment, this amendment would allow the use of accessory structures in residential zone districts of Class 1 home occupation businesses. And the board may approve of modifications, remand to the Planning Commission, or deny. And that concludes my presentation. Staff is here to answer any questions the board may have. And thank you for your time.
Great, thank you so much. And is this the first time you've presented to us?
It is.
Okay,
right.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much. You did a great job.
I appreciate it.
You bet. Any questions for staff?
I would just like to clarify.
Sure.
I would just like to clarify that we commissioners asked staff to do this because a citizen who had a hobby that turned into a little business that he wanted to do in his accessory structure but was not possible, wanted to follow the rules and came for us. Am I confused, or is that why we're here today?
I'll provide that concurrence, Commissioner. That is the situation. By all means, please finish questions or comments, because I do wish to speak to that scenario.
I just wanted to make sure that I was remembering this right, because this is a slight change. There's not a lot of differences here, but I think this is why we did that, and it's because this citizen wants to follow the law. He wants to follow the rules, so he came to us. He was pretty insistent that he be able to follow the rules, and I think this is an example of government listening to its residents. So I just wanted to be sure. I have no other questions. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. Commissioner Thomas, additional questions?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up that clarification, Commissioner Thomas, because that is what happened, and I think the resident even postponed his intended plans, if I recall the feedback we received from staff, because he did want to be fully in compliance with the county regulations. Once it came forward, for members of the public who wish to understand the reasoning here, once this came forward, I think it caused us to really ask a common sense question of what is the nature of the prohibition, and is the prohibition appropriate? Because, again, it was a hobby for this resident. It then became a money-making business to augment this individual's living, giving the... And so the question was, are we really in the business of depriving our residents the capability of either augmenting their income or providing their own living on their own property? And so for me, it was a real common sense kind of question of what is the difference between having a Class 1 home occupation, which is restricted by class. It is a class restriction based upon the nature of the business. Whether it has to be in the residence or it can be in an outbuilding that is still a residence. And so the residence is still a residence. The residence can't automatically convert to being a Starbucks coffee. It can't convert to being a McDonald's. It can't convert to being a home to being a steel plant. Versus, I equated it to a blacksmith is allowed to run a Class 1 home occupation, I believe, at their residence. And so what's the difference with it being inside the residence versus in a detached garage? And so I think it started hitting the common sense test where I felt strongly enough to bring it to my colleagues and say, hey, we really need to address this. We need to take a look at this regulation. And it's a tweak. It's not a sea change. It's not a complete rewrite, and I don't even believe it's a change of philosophy. I think it's a tweak that allows our own residents to provide for their own livings, making use of their own capital, namely their own properties, their own homes, and their own property. In case anybody hasn't figured out, I am an unabashed advocate of this change, and I do advocate for it. But of course, we should take public comment, and I will be happy to speak to any public comment in order to further articulate my rationale for advocating for this change to be made.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. I'll reserve my comments following citizen comment on this item. So is there any citizen comment regarding this Douglas County zoning resolution? Any citizen comment? Any comment online?
Thank you, Commissioner. I have no online comment.
Okay, and with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion. I would just echo the comments of my colleagues. I think this is great commissioning work, and coming out of COVID, it was difficult for many of our citizens to make a living and really be able to use their property as they see fit. And George, I think you did listen to a citizen and listen to many citizens about the need to have appropriate home occupations. And so with staff working very hard and connecting with the community and hosting the listening sessions, I think this is a very refined and specific way in which home occupations can advance appropriately in Douglas County. So I will be in support. Any additional comment and or a motion?
Well, colleagues, I very much appreciate you being open-minded and willing to listen to my rationale in terms of what we do with home-based businesses and home occupation regulations here in the county. So without further ado, I do have a motion to approve a resolution adopting amendments to the Douglas County Zoning Resolution, Section 23, Home Occupation. Project file is DR 2023-002.
Second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries 3-0. With that, we'll move on to our next item, which is a proposed amendment to Section 17 Wildfire Hazard Overlay District of the Douglas County Zoning Resolution, project file DR 2022-006. Trevor Bedford presenting for staff. Hi, Trevor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Trevor Bedford, representing Community Development. The request before you is an amendment to the Douglas County zoning resolution. The project number is DR 2022-006. The request is an amendment to update and clarify Section 17 Wildfire Hazard Overlay District of the Douglas County zoning resolution, as well as update the Wildfire Hazard Overlay District map. This project follows the same process as the previous zoning resolution we just heard, amendment. This application was initiated by the Board of County Commissioners. This slide shows the review timeline. This was heard at the Planning Commission on December 4th, and the next step is now this public hearing before the Board of County Commissioners. Again, this was heard by the Planning Commission December 4th, where the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the amendments. No members of the public were present at the hearing. A memo was provided earlier summarizing the hearing. The proposed updates to Section 17 include updated references to exhibits, clarification of some definitions, updates to references to building codes, wildfire mitigation standards, roadway and design and construction standards. This includes the replacement of the wildfire hazard rating system with a wildfire hazard assessment to be a more site-specific approach rather than a one-size-fits-all type of rating system. Sections 1705, 1706, and 1707 have also been reorganized for better clarity. This slide shows the current map, which was last revised in 2001. This shows the proposed map. This accounts for a lot of changes in the county since 2001. Staff sent the proposed amendments on a countywide contact and referral agency list, which consists of approximately 500 respondents. A summary of these responses were provided in the staff report. Staff also conducted a public workshop in this hearing room, and one citizen attended and mainly asked questions about what can be done for wildfire mitigation on their property. They had no concerns over they voiced no concerns over the proposed changes. This slide shows the parameters for the board's determination on zoning resolution amendments as outlined in section 109.05. This concludes my presentation. I am available for any questions as well as a few members of the building staff.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions for staff?
I have none, thank you.
No questions. Good work.
And I have no questions either. With that, I'll open it up for citizen comment on the Wildfire Hazard Overlay District. Any citizen comment with regard to that item? Any comment online?
No online comments, sir.
Okay, thank you, Troy. And with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I have a motion to approve a resolution adopting amendments to Douglas County Zoning Resolution Section 17, Wildfire Hazard Overlay District, and the Wildfire Hazard Overlay District map, project file DR 2022-006.
Second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries 3-0. And with that, we are on to our final item, which is a resolution supplementing the 2023 adopted budget to appropriate unanticipated revenues and appropriate restricted, assigned, and unassigned fund balances in the amount of $27,958. Actually, it's $27,958,350. Might have missed the extra zeros on the end there. Kimberly Hirsch presenting for staff. Hi, Kim.
Hello. We'll finish up with a bang here. I'd like to formally present the final supplemental for fiscal year 2023. The total amount of the request for your consideration today is $27,958,350. This supplemental request will be increasing appropriations for new revenues that have been received since the formal budget adoption, allow for additional grants and required grant matching, and appropriate fund balances for new initiatives as well as spending authority compliance. In total, 15 of the county's 27 funds will be adjusted with this revised appropriation, and I've attached all backup explaining each individual request along with the fund summaries and amended budget figures. With this supplemental, the new amended budget for Douglas County will be $726,446,370. All supplemental appropriations are governed by Statute 29-9-109. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Any questions for Kim?
Kim, I did have one question. When we talk about the health fund, is that for the Douglas County Health Board? Health Department, okay. And then there was $1,425,000 for arborist cleanup. Will we be getting reimbursement that from the federal government for that?
Yes, in 2024, let me get my years straight, we have submitted for a FEMA reimbursement, and it's approximately 75% of that, and we're expecting that between second and third quarter.
Perfect. I have no other questions. Wow, up to $726 million.
Yes.
Is that the biggest we've ever had?
Most likely, close, but we had ARPA last year, where we had to appropriate all the funding for ARPA, so I'm not 100% certain on that one.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Teal, any questions?
No questions. I went through the details, and it looks like what we've talked about in the past.
I did as well and have no further questions. So with that, I'll open it up for any citizen comment with regard to the 2023 adopted budget. Is there any citizen comment with regard to this item, either in person or online?
Commissioner, I have no online comment.
Okay, and with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
Please, the board, I do have a motion to approve a resolution supplementing the 2023 adopted budget to appropriate unanticipated revenues and appropriate restricted, assigned, and unassigned fund balances in the amount of $27,958,350.
Second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 3-0. The next land use meeting, public hearing, will be held on Tuesday, January 9th, 2024 at 2:30 p.m. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were we going to do citizen comment? Is that what we did?